Hello. So the purpose of this video is to go over in another format the process of the timeline assignment. So it's a companion to the PDF slideshow that I have attached to the assignment itself. So let's just take a few minutes and think about why we're doing this timeline assignment in the first place. So it's an opportunity for us to collaborate, or for all of you to collaborate together, with each other to make this large. I'm sorry, weird things are happening across the street. Anyway, so to make this complete or fairly complete timeline from the beginning of the semester through the end. So it lets us read about, to look at and see kind of in a visual form how these events processed. It helps us to understand connections and historical significance. It also gives you an opportunity to research some things that you're interested in that um, the book may not cover in enough detail for you, or just something that you're interested in. And it also gives you an opportunity to work on a different platform. So that old the thing about learning, digital literacy, that sort of thing. This slide has all of the steps, but we're going to be going over those individually. So I'm not going to stop there. But I do want you to think about what is important for you to think about, okay? So, first of all, you want to make sure that when you pick a topic, someone else hasn't already chosen it. I don't want duplicates on the timeline. And how do we avoid those? Well, the only way to do that is when you decide on a topic, you put it out there with your name on it on the timeline. And then when somebody else goes and wants to add their placeholders, what I'm calling that, they look and they see you've already got it, so they're going to choose something else. You need to keep in mind that I can't tell when something was put on the timeline. It doesn't give me that. It'd be nice, but it doesn't. So, if you want to be extra sure, I've had students put a date after they add their placeholder. That's up to you. I don't. It's not a requirement. Okay, but you make your placeholder and then you go do your research. Okay, remember when you're writing up your description, you always want to talk about historical significance. Okay, and I'm going to show you these next couple of points. I think it's easier to read if in the intro, I've done a little investigating and reading about it on the timeline program, and they intend for that to just be a sentence or two, and then for the rest of it to be an extra info. And that extra info section, and that's what it's called, lets you make paragraphs and do some formatting that you cannot do at the top. So it's really easier to read if you do that. Okay. Um, Make sure that you add the link for your source. If you don't use an online source, then be sure to add that at the bottom. Add your source, cite it at the bottom of your description. And be sure to add an image. And we'll talk about how to properly add the image. And then when you make the second part of this is to make your connection, and you add that underneath your original description. Avoid sources that you can't justify. If I ask you, well, why do you think this is a good source? You need to be able to tell me that. And so what is a good source? Well, I know I say in the instructions, not Wikipedia, not most encyclopedia sites. Why? Well, because they don't tell you who wrote it. They sometimes tell you their sources, sometimes they don't. Britannica sometimes gives you sources, for example, but most of the time they do not. History.com, for example, sometimes they tell you who wrote it. Mostly they don't. Sometimes they give you their sources. So, at least if they tell you your sources, then you can go back and check if you want, right? Um, but not locating an outside source is also not good. You want to be sure that you have a source. Don't just rely on your textbook. And also, don't forget to submitted on Canvas. Why? Because I grade on Canvas. I look what I'm grading, I have the timeline open, but I also have Canvas open and I'm looking at both of them. But if it isn't going to be on Canvas, I can't, I don't, I'm not going to grade it because I don't know about it. I can't keep track. I mean, after the second week or third week, there are so many out there. I really can't keep track of which ones that I've looked at and which ones I haven't looked at. Okay, so let's look at the detail. Let's look at the steps in a little bit more detail. So to sign on to the timeline, I've given you a link in the instructions. And when you open that, and this may or may not be for your class, but it looks the same anyway. So you see this little box in the lower left hand corner, and you put your name there. Um, first first and last. Don't put the name of the class, put your name, okay? And then you put the secret word, which is in the um, instructions, and you hit go. Now you see, I have one out there. That's the one that I added as a sample. But now I'm pretending to be a student here. So I hit go, and you can see the story's still there, but it's not showing up in this admin section. So this admin section is a little drop down thing. And when I've done a couple stories, they're going to show up on my list. But I need to have a story first. So I create a story, and I give it a name, and you need to change it, not new story, right? So I'm going to say, oh, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I didn't think about this actually. Galileo. Okay. And I don't know when he lived exactly, but I'm just going to put in a date here. So I put in, 1530. He was probably 14, right? 1430 to 1500. Okay. What did I do wrong? Okay. Well, let's do something like, I think I started this at 1648. So we'll do 1648 to 1700. I'll check to make sure that the dates are right. But anyway, so that's and my picture is in the way. Let me move my picture. Okay. So then this is for your placeholder, you don't need to write anything. We'll just leave it at that, and it's a person. So you choose a person and then you save it. Okay. And now he's over there. All right. So that's how you enter your placeholder. And then after you've done that, then you want to go back and do your research. Now, how do you do your research? Well, I use Google a lot. I and I look for good, I look for, good sources, etc. That's like another whole video that I'm probably not going to make, but um after I have done that, after I have written, okay, so the next steps are to do my research, to write the description, and to explain why it's historically significant for this class. Okay. Um, in the early days, that's not going to be as much of a problem. But when you get to a little bit later in this class, say we're in World War I or World War II, and somebody might want to choose something, a person, for example, that's from the United States, or another one is the Great Depression. Okay, it started in the United States, so it was a worldwide event. But when you're describing it, you want to describe it as, historically significant for this class, which is primarily a European class or a Western civilization. Once we become a little bit more globalized and interconnected, then they kind of relate. But it is primarily a European class. So you kind of need to keep that in mind. Um, anyway, so then you go back to your story, you find your story because you're still, well, you, when you sign in again, you'll still see that, these are my stories. So I go to Galileo, and then I go to edit right there. And in my first one, this is my, my introduction. You know, Galileo was a scientist who developed a telescope by which he could view the skies. And I see DVL. Okay. And then I hit save. And then I go over here, save. And then I go over here to extra info. And then here's where I write the rest of my description. Okay. And I hit save. Okay. Now my source link goes down here. Back to basic info because I forgot to show you that. But right there is where you paste the source link. Okay, so let's just say, and we can just do this real quick, I think. World History Encyclopedia, by the way, is a good one, though it has a lot more for the earlier time period than this one. But I just think I can find something very quickly here. Okay, so there's Galileo. My mouse is giving me problems here. So let's say I use this to write my description. Then I copy this link, and I go back here and I paste it in here and I save it. Now, then we're going to get to the image, which is the one that probably gives the most people the most trouble. Okay. So let's just say, oh, I like this one. All right. Though you don't have to use this one. You can Google Galileo and images and come up with some. Some are easier to do than others, but let's say we decide we like this one. So I do a right click, I open it in a new tab. I didn't want a new window, I wanted a new tab. Open in a new tab. Okay, so it took me to another website. All right, so click again, open it in a new tab. Now it is the only thing on the screen. So now I can take that and I can copy it. And I can go back here to my timeline entry and I go to media, add new media, and I copy the source in here. And I think it was Galileo demonstrating his telescope. So it is not necessary to have a caption, but anyway. Okay, so now you can see that the picture is there. If you open it up, here's my intro, here's my description, here's the link. I click on that, it will open my link. Okay, so then you got all that done, and then you submit it all to Canvas. All right, so we already skipped on that one here. Easy. So, as always, if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, thanks.